ND filters for your action cam. Do you really need them? Alright guys, now I hope you're all good. Now in this video I'm going to discuss whether or not you actually need an ND filter for your action cam. Like, why bother? So you've got yourself some form of action camera, whether that be a GoPro, an Action 5 or even maybe a Pocket 3, and everybody's telling you that you need to get yourself a set of NDs to have cinematic footage. So do you really need to go out and buy some additional ND filters, or can you just stick your camera on auto and let it do its job? So I don't know about you, but if you're anything like me, I can't stand ND filters, the ones that you've got to put on the front of your camera anyway, because they're fiddly, they restrict the way you can use your camera, and it's another thing you've got to buy. Plus, they take all the spontaneity out of shooting. And action cameras are meant for spontaneity, they're meant for grab and go footage. You don't want to constantly be checking your settings, making sure you're hitting the 180-degree shutter rule. You just want to put it in auto, forget about it and capture some cool stuff. You know what I mean? Why does everything have to be cinematic? So in this video I'm going to show you a variety of side-by-side clips. One where I'll be using an ND filter and the other one where I won't be. And I'll just be cranking my shutter to make sure that I maintain that exposure. I'll be using the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 along with the Action 5 Pro because these are the action cameras that I've got, but the takeaway will be the same for any action camera really. So to keep things fair, I'll be maintaining the same settings throughout, so I'll be shooting in 4K D-Log-M, and then for each example I'll be adjusting the white balance, ISO and frame rates to suit. The only variation will be the shutter speed. So obviously in the examples where I am using an ND filter, I will be adhering to that 180-degree shutter rule. So when I'm shooting at 25 frames per second, I will be shooting at 1/50, 50 frames per second, 1/100. You get the gist, and I'll be cranking my shutter when I'm not. And to keep things a little bit fun, I'm not going to tell you which is which, for about 10 seconds anyway. See if you can actually tell the difference. Can you see the cinematic footage? Or is it a load of tripe? That way, you can at least decide on whether or not you want to go out and buy some. So without wasting any more time, let's roll the example, shall we?
With low self-esteem, was me and my mama, just us in the trauma. Hands up if you know what I mean. I see you, I feel you, I want you to know that you're not alone. I know what it's like not to have a home, like walking barefoot up a gravel road. The pain gon' make you unstoppable, now audible. Feel like I live in the end zone, I'm the one leading the drives. The crew riding round in a benzo, red carpets when we arrive. I'll be in charge of my own fate, left the excuses behind. Now I'm the illest violinist alive. I took the pain and I thrive, but look at me now. I used to crash on the couch, now I got cash in the bank. Look at me now, she didn't want me around, now she begging me to stay. Look at me now, nobody knew who I was, now everyone's screaming my name. Look at me now, I couldn't look at myself, now I see the mirror and say, look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now. I wonder if I made you proud, following dreams.
like your favorite content creator. I promise my mama I'll make it, that woman a queen. The grind of my father been embedded in me since I was a teen. Mashallah, I mean, that's what they say to me now. What you expect from the boy? I pop on their feed, they all wanna hate on me now. Why you disrespecting the boy? That's just confirmation that I'ma win. The beat getting beat up, I'm violent. I'm smooth like I'm C on the violin. I try, if I fail, I'ma try again. No denying it. I know I was built for this. I would die, I would kill for this. I showed them 1,000 times I'm about this life. I don't know how they still forget. Flew to LA in the big seat. Everything I do is big heat. Everything I do is miskeep. Making big moves, keep them discreet. 100 new connections this week. Making flips like a Misty. Eyes stacked up against me. Told them miss me. Mama, look at me now. I used to crash on the couch. Now I got cash in the bank. Look at me now. She didn't want me around. Now she begging me to stay. Look at me now. Nobody knew who I was. Now everyone's screaming my name. Look at me now. I couldn't look at myself. Now I see the mirror and say, look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now.
I wonder if I made you proud.
Okay, so how well did you do? Did you guess? Could you tell? Was there a difference? If you couldn't tell the difference, then you probably don't need to go and buy yourself some ND filters. You can probably just crank your shutter and do without. But if it was, then clearly ND filters, as annoying as they are, have a purpose, and you probably should think about putting them in your kit. Personally, I do prefer footage when you are adhering to the 180-degree shutter rule, especially when you're shooting fast-moving subjects, like cars, water, sports, those sorts of things. And with these being action cameras, you're probably going to find yourself in situations where you are shooting subjects like that, so it might be best to actually just invest in some anyway. You don't have to use them all the time. There is a time and a place. That's probably the most important takeaway, is you don't always need to use these. You can sometimes just get away with it and not bother. For those times that you can be bothered, you probably will notice the difference, and it will elevate your video game that little bit more. But if you're determined to be an ND dodger like myself, then there are some scenarios where you probably don't even need to bother with ND filters, and you can get away with shooting at a decent shutter angle, but not the desired 180-degree cinematic one. For example, high action sports. If you're shooting anything like boxing or motor racing, things like that, then the desired 180-degree shutter rule isn't as desired in those genres. So you go for something called the 90-degree shutter rule, whereby instead of doubling your frame rate, you're going to want to quadruple your frame rate. So instead of 1/50, you'll be shooting at 1/100, which essentially gives you an extra stop where you don't really need an ND filter. Another ND dodging tactic is shoot in log and higher frame rates. For example, instead of shooting in 25 frames per second, shoot in 50 or shoot in 100. That way your frame rate's going to be 1/100 or 1/200. Also, shooting in log, you have to overexpose log by about a stop. So that's like an extra stop whereby you don't need to compensate for. So you can be overexposed by a stop, which means that you've got more leeway in your shutter speed. Now I know what these keyboard warriors are going to say, but before you start, we're not shooting with professional cameras here, we're shooting with action cameras. So maintaining that base ISO of 640 that you would normally do for like log, I don't know if it's D-log, but for example Vlog, 640 as your base ISO, you're going to want to try and maintain that. But 640 as an ISO in daylight is actually quite high, so it's going to be very blown out, whereby you will need an ND filter. We're talking about daylight here, bright sunny conditions, so how much noise is potentially going to be visible in your image? They're only action cameras. It really doesn't matter if you've got a little bit of noise in the shadows. So if you're shooting the lowest ISO possible, something like 100, then that's going to reduce the sensitivity that your camera has to light and allow you to shoot in better conditions. And when you go inside, you're not going to need an ND filter anyway. So what does it matter? Then you can raise your ISO and have better noise performance. But again, these are action cameras. It really doesn't matter that much. Tell you what, it's quite funny though. Making a video about the use of ND filters in the UK during winter. I've had barely any sunny days to be able to show you any examples of me actually using an ND filter. So if you really do dislike ND filters like I do, just live in the UK. We don't even need them over here. It's a joke. So I don't even know what this video is going to be like. So yeah, definitely watch some of the reviews. Maybe some in California or Florida or something. They might show better use cases for ND filters. When it comes to the UK, we definitely don't need them, especially on these action cameras. It's all about just documenting your day. If I had to faff around with an ND filter now, it'd be a right pain. So yeah, as a true ND dodger, those are my little tips to try and avoid using these filters. However, there are still scenarios where you just can't, right? You just really can't avoid using these things. And they're a necessary evil, if you ask me. Like, they do the job. And until these companies actually start putting ND filters internally into these cameras, we're going to have to actually go out and buy these things. Right, here's another example of when you're going to want to try and use the correct shutter speed when you've got motion in your video. I know I'm clutching at straws here, but anyway. So here we have got the ND16 on. We're shooting in 4K 50 with the correct shutter speed of 1/100. What's the motion blur like in the flags? Right, so we've got the exact same shot, but this time without the ND filter. And to maintain that exposure, we've had to crank our shutter all the way to 1/1600. So can you tell the difference in the motion blur of the flags? Do you think it warrants an ND? Or do you think you can get away with it? 1/1600 is quite a crank. And there are so many to choose from, especially on Amazon with all these copycat companies that are out there. You don't know what to get and what is the best value for money. Which brings me on nicely to the sponsor of this video. So for this video, Teleson were kind enough to send me a set of their ND filters for both the Action 5 Pro and the Osmo Pocket 3. So yeah, they did send me these to try out. However, they had absolutely no input in this video. All the thoughts and opinions are my own. And trust me when I tell you, I will never make a sponsored video or review anything that I wouldn't personally buy myself. And I've had quite a few companies reach out to me, to be fair, but this is the first one I've actually decided to work with because I've actually bought Teleson ND filters in the past before and they were pretty good. And I do actually need some ND filters, so it was kind of a win-win. But no, I have used Teleson before in the past and it's very difficult to actually find a decent brand or decent third-party brand, especially with the sea of Amazon. There's just so many people just selling crap on Amazon these days, just giving it a different name. So Teleson have actually been around for a long time. I mean, I don't actually know anything about their company history and I've bought from them before in the past and I've been pretty happy. So yeah, I thought I'd give them a go because they actually inspired me to make this video in the end, because I've been meaning to try and buy some of these ND filters for these action cams for some time now and yeah, been putting it off. Who'd have thought? So now that I've finally sold out and become a ShilTuber, should we take a look at what they sent? Right, so let's start with the easy ones, the ones for the Action 5. And I believe they're also compatible with the Action 4 and the Action 3 as well. So inside the pack you actually get 3 ND filters and 1 circular polarizer. You get an ND8, an ND16 and an ND32. Now I'm not going to touch on the polarizer, that's for another video. This is about the ND filters. Now they do come in this nice padded box. However, it's not really something that you would want to transport around. It's not like a carry case. It's a bit cumbersome, so it would have been nice if they actually included some form of carry case. However, the overall build quality is really nice. It's an aluminium construction, which is a big step up from the plastic versions that I had for the GoPro. What appears to be very high quality glass. I mean, I'm no glass expert, but I did not see any kind of color shifting or any discrepancies when testing these out. I mean, to compare them to the GoPro versions that I had from many moons ago, there's definitely a big improvement in quality. And the way you fit them is you remove the little rubber ring that comes with the action camera on the Action 5, and then you simply just push them on with a little bit of friction. That's it. Very secure fit, doesn't show any signs of falling off. However, I wouldn't recommend that you go surfing with these guys, but it is a nice snug fit and I'm pretty confident that they're not going to fall off. So snug in fact that the polarizer also fits on in the same manner, and to adjust the polarizer, because it's a circular one, you actually have to turn the whole thing. There's no like dial or anything, which is a little bit confusing and makes it a little bit tricky to adjust. So the polarizer, not so sure on that one. But yeah, for the ND filters, they're really cool, really nice, really well made, and you simply just put the strength on that you require at the time, depending on the environment that you're in, and that's it. Now it's slightly annoying that it's not like a variable one, so you do have 3 different strengths, so you got to pick the appropriate one, so you do have to carry 3 or 4 of these around with you, which can get a little bit annoying, but they're quite small, they'll be fine. Plus, most of the manufacturers are doing them exactly the same way, so it must be some sort of industry standard. So yeah, those are the action cam filters. Now let's have a look at the pocket filters. So these are the filters that you get for the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. Now you do get slightly different variations. Instead of the ND8, 16 and 32, what you get instead is an ND16, 64 and 256, which seems a bit of a jump if you ask me, but there must be a reason for it. I'm not so sure. Plus you get the circular polarizer as well. And the build quality, again, a very nice aluminium construction. This time with the circular polarizer, you actually get a little dial, which is very nice to see. Now the way you fix these is exactly the same way you fix any other filter that you can buy for this camera. They simply magnetize to the front of the lens. Now I'm not a massive fan of this method, to be fair, and that's not Teleson's doing, like they're just doing the best that they can. It's DJI and the way that they've designed this silly gimbal. It's very delicate, is this gimbal, and to try and put these filters on the front, let alone take the bad boys off, is very, very sketch. I just feel like I'm going to damage the gimbal, so I'd highly recommend when you're using these filters to turn the camera off so that the gimbal isn't operational. That way you're not at risk of burning out these motors. Anyway, other than that, they come in a much better case than the Action 5 filters do. You actually get a case for these ones, one that's closable and you can actually take it in your bag. Or alternatively, what I like to do is I like to use the actual Osmo Pocket handle that you get, remove the wide angle lens because I never use that, and then I put two of my favorite ND filters in there, so I've always got them with me. Little handy tip for you there. So those are the filters that Teleson kindly sent me. I'll leave a link in the description box below so you can check these out for yourself. This is an affiliate link, so it does mean that I will get a tiny little kickback from any purchase made, but doesn't affect the price that you pay in the end, so it helps support this channel, which is very, very nice. They've also been kind enough to include a 10% discount code for you guys, which I'll leave on the screen below. Just type this in at checkout and then you can get yourself 10% off. So it's a win-win. I win, you win. We win. We all win. Everyone's a winner. So yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you think to these ND filters? What did you think of the footage? Could you tell the difference? Do you think you'll be picking up a set for yourself? Or do you think you'll be an ND dodger for the rest of your life? In all honesty, I know I've given ND filters a bit of a hard time in this video, but they're just so darn fiddly. But they do have a place and they do have a purpose. So I would definitely recommend that even though it's just for action cameras, you do pick yourself up a set, because if you want to avoid all that kind of like over sharpened glitchy footage that you seem to get from action cameras and iPhones these days, then definitely get yourself a set of ND filters, because that's just going to make your footage look so much more professional, so much more pleasing to the eye for the viewer. And yeah, the ones from Teleson, I'd highly recommend. Very well made, very affordable, and plus I trust the company because I've used them for some time now and they're still around. So yeah, and thank you very much for supporting this channel. And that's all from me. If you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. It really helps out the channel. If you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing, hit the bell, all those nice things that will put a smile on my face. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
I know you heard a little something about me, right? People love to talk, everybody wanna doubt me, right? I know, bunch of fakes all around me, right? They clowning like, I ain't hear what it sounding like. I know, these fools hating on the low, smiling all in my face, stab me in the